Hey guys, Rift here, and today I want to talk about Valheim. The best way to explain this game is that this game is a great epic story, or a grand adventure story. Let me explain. Have you read any epic poem or story like the Iliad by Homer, or a movie about a grand adventure? Well, Valheim is exactly that, an epic story, a grand adventure, a story about a beautiful and mysterious world filled with dangers at every corner, a story about an unknown Viking sent to the world of Valheim to survive and fight to one day be granted a place in Valhalla. I haven't been this invested in a game since God of War 2018. Now you might think that I'm this invested because of the mythology surrounding the world. Partly yes, but in God of War 2018, the story and the gameplay is masterful. While in Valheim, there is no story aside from the beginning lore, and there are some gameplay elements that need work. So what makes this game so great and addictive? Well, one is there is no story, aside from the beginning introductions. I said earlier that this game is like an epic story or a grand adventure story. Yes, it is. Who writes the story? You. You're the author of this epic story. And the world and the setting that you get to write your story on is filled with things to discover, to explore, with so much adventuring that you might not even know where to start. What are some other reasons why this game is great? Let's talk about some specifics. Let's start with a new world. When you start a new world, you're dropped into a procedurally generated world, and this game does not hold your hand whatsoever. So you'll find new players building the same tool over and over again because you didn't notice the repair button. Don't lie to me, every Viking in Valheim has done that. There are 3 things you notice in the beginning: your health bar, stamina bar, and food bar. Your base health is 25. The only way to get more HP is by eating. You don't die from hunger, you die from everything else. So keep yourself well fed. Stamina is everything. I can only think of 3 activities that doesn't cost stamina. That's sailing, walking, and floating. Almost every other action in the game will cost stamina, from drawing your bow to building and jumping. Stamina is king. The way to increase your stamina is also by eating. This mechanic is well done, as hunting and gathering food may seem mundane and tedious, but for me it doesn't feel like that, and we'll talk more about the mundane and tedious activities later. Next, let's talk about the exploration. I keep on saying this, but this game is beautiful. From its breathtaking visuals to its atmospheric music, it's just really beautiful. You start at the meadows. You get this calm and safe feeling coupled with music that'll make you feel safer. Then night begins. It might be intimidating at first, but you quickly realize the enemies in the meadows are nothing. Then you get to the Black Forest during the day. The tall trees and the forever sunset backdrop looks very beautiful, but at night, it all changes. Darkness is done very well. It's dark and creepy. You only see the eyes of grey dwarves. You also only hear stompings of the troll and clanking sounds of skeleton. But then, you get to the swamps. Everything is scary in the swamps. Every new biome feels unique. From its visuals to its atmosphere, every new location you come across will give you that tense and uneasy feeling that something will get you. Don't even get me started with the ocean. It's so terrifying. This game may look beautiful, but deep down, almost every Viking knows that this game is secretly a horror game. Next, let's talk about the creatures. You have the basic boar, deers, and necks. This will be your main source of food in the beginning. Just a quick tip, pick everything up. From berries, flint, feathers, everything you can find, pick it up. You'll thank me later. Let's get back to the creatures. Your first real enemies are the Grey Dwarves, or what I like to call them, Karens. They may seem scary at first, but the more you face them, the less scarier they become. The other creatures are Grey Dwarf, shamans, brutes, trolls, skeletons, draugrs, leech, and this not-looking thing, and so much more. Basically, the more deeper you get into Valheim, the scarier enemies get. They don't just look scary, but they hit harder as well, so you'll need better gear. I think now is the right time to talk about the mundane and tedious activities. Well, there are none. They might feel or seem mundane and tedious, but they're not. They feel rewarding. For example, woodcutting. It may seem uninteresting, but every time you swing your axe at a tree, you level up your woodcutting skills. We'll talk more about leveling up later. Wood is used for basically everything, from making campfires for cooking or staying warm at night. It's also used for building houses, which in turn will give you the rested buff to give you more stamina regen. More stamina equals more things you can do. It's a cycle of hard work but with meaningful payoffs, and that alone makes this game worth spending hours of your time in, because you always feel rewarded. Other activities like hunting and gathering may seem time consuming, but to me it never felt like that. Catching a boar when I was starting out was hard, but once I got 2 boars, you can make endless supply of meat and leather. Now you have an endless supply of food to keep yourself fed, which will give you more health and stamina. You'll also get a lot of leather scraps to make better gear. Gathering as well is very useful. Once you're able to make Queen's Jam, it's your best friend in the early game. It's the best food you can have and it's easy to make. My point is that mundane and tedious activities in Valheim feel rewarding. You never get bored doing them as you're always aiming for that next goal. Unlike in other games where the gameplay loop feels forced, it's so forced that game publishers will sell time savers and XP boosts in single player games. Like, what the actual fuck? If your game needs a time saver and XP boost in a single player game, you know that your game gets boring. Especially for a single player game. Unlike in Valheim, everything you do is rewarded in one way or another. It never forces you to do any gathering or hunting, but you never know when you need one more deer hide or troll hide to upgrade your stuff. So actively doing the little things will reward you in the long run. And this to me is why I think this game is the game of the year. Next, let's talk about the leveling up system. It's nothing new. It's close to Skyrim where the more you do certain activities, the more you level them up. Like using the bow, which is probably my favorite tool in the game. The more you use the bow, the better you get at it. Not only your character, but your aiming as well. The more you level up your bow skills, the faster you can shoot. The more you use your bow, the more you as a player can tell how wind will affect your arrow or how high you have to aim. Same thing when jumping. The more you jump, the higher you jump. Almost every action you can level up will seamlessly level up the more you play. I got to this level without even knowing I was already this far ahead with some of my skills. Again, hard work equals reward and payoff. Now let's talk about a few downsides. One is the combat. Though the combat may feel tense and exciting at first, when you start figuring out how the AI works, it gets less challenging. But there are dangerous enemies found in the swamp biomes that can still kill you quickly if you're not careful, and in more dangerous biomes like the mountains and the plains. The downside is not the enemies themselves, but the AI. For what it is right now, it's actually pretty good compared to some AAA games. It's not a big of a letdown where you want to quit playing. It's about improving the AI to make the combat feel more intense than what it is already. For example, when you're chased by grey dwarves, instead of them following you in a straight line, why not try to surround you and corner you? But the biggest issue with the AI is its pathing. It's really easy to exploit the enemy with terrain. But again, this may be a letdown, but still every combat situation feels intense. The other thing is the snapping mechanics when building. Sometimes things will just not snap to where you want them to. You have to aim at different angles to get the right snapping animation, which can get frustrating at times. But even that has a good side. After building, you get to see this. I started out with houses that look like this, but after watching YouTube videos about building, I got inspired to build better. And I got 100 times more addicted to this game. And let me not forget that they're also updating the building mechanics in the future, which is just great to hear. One last thing before we move to the recommendation and conclusion. This game has an awesome roadmap. For being an early access game, you can see that the devs really care about this game. The roadmap is filled with content to come that look really interesting. The future seems bright for Valheim. Now let's move over to my recommendations and conclusions. So let's start with my recommendation. If you're thinking about getting this game, by all means, get this game. There's no other game in my opinion right now that has brought a lot of fun back in video games. For how much it is right now, and it still being an early access game, this game feels complete. It's hours of fun playing solo or with friends. And I've never had a time where I was bored of playing this game. When I would play any other game that feels underwhelming, I would think to myself, why play this underwhelming game when I have Valheim? Then I end up playing Valheim instead. This game is worth the spend. It doesn't even cost that much. The roadmap of this game is very interesting as it's full of new things to explore and do. Right now, for what it is, there are a lot of things you can do. Whether you like building games or RPG adventure games or even sandbox games, this game has you covered. If you're still thinking about it, then let me tell you this. If you love any of the game genres that I mentioned, then give this game a shot. I feel like you'll enjoy this game if you like any of the genres I mentioned. Let's move over to the conclusion. For a game that was developed by 5 people, you can see that games don't need AAA budgets or the next gen graphics to be good. All you need are people who are willing to make a game that is fun for the player. No need for all that extra stuff. Just a game that is plain and simple, fun. I mentioned that everything you do in this game is rewarding, and it really is. There may be a few things that needs fixing, but again, this game is in early access. and that to me is already mind-blowing. The fact that only 5 people developed this game and being an early access game but also feeling complete is an achievement that most games now can't even say they are. This game is great. It's beautiful, it's relaxing, and terrifying at the same time. But most importantly, this game feels complete. I really am serious when I say this game can be considered as the game of the year. I will not be surprised if it does win that. I really love this game and will be looking forward for more content. There are so much more good and great things to say about this game, but I feel like this video will be too long, so I'll end it here. So guys, if you like the video, don't forget to press that like button. If you want to see more Valheim, I'll try to do probably a tips and tricks guide. I'll try out that type of content. If you want to see that, again, press that like button. Comment down below what you guys think about Valheim, or comment whatever really. I'll read all of your comments. I'll reply to all of the comments. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Again, thank you so much for all of the wonderful love and support that I've been getting on the channel recently. So yeah, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Like the video if you liked it, comment down below, do all of that stuff. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Stay safe, much love, and peace out.